What can we do to extend our aim, to make hitting insane clips feel as natural as breathing? Well, for 1 week, that's exactly what I sought out to do, by following a routine created by top aimers for top aimers. But it wasn't going to be that easy. The routine I was going to follow was known to be one of the hardest out there, designed to push even the most skilled players to their limits. And the only asset I had to rely on is called Miyu benchmarks. So what is a benchmark? A benchmark is exactly what it sounds. Using aim trainers, we play specific scenarios that have been created for us and input a score into a Google Docs document. This document will then be taken and calculated our score and set a rank for us based on the score we get across all scenarios. We got a color assigned to each scenario and the respective ranks. So the Miyu benchmarks are known for some of the hardest tracking benchmarks out there. When some of the scenarios require you to be a top 100 to even become ranked, that's insane. That's why me, who sucks at tracking, wanted to see how far I could actually take this. Could I go from unranked to an aiming monster in under a week? Let's find out.
Pushing hella keys, I made it to the top flow. Now they tryna lock the door, about to get the top score. Now they tryna pull a cord, fuck it till she got sold. Now she says she wants some more, linked it to the bar for sure. Wake up and say bonjour, about to go to frames. We outside in public, baby, please pull up your prints.
Now let me tell you, these benchmarks are no joke. One of the reasons I picked this over more popular choices is because they don't sugarcoat your rank. If you're just a good player, you'll get unranked, rather than some bronze medal other benchmarks might give out. They don't follow the rules of traditional aim scenarios, and that's what makes them so unique and challenging. Scenarios where you have to track one target and do a 180 to find the next one, or deal with unusual bot patterns that are sure to test your tracking skills to the limit. But the challenge was what made it exciting. I was determined to push myself to the limit and see how far I could take my aim in under a week. And let me tell you, the results were game-changing for me. Day 1 started off rather surprising. The fast scenario and the gauntlet scenarios really stood out to me, and I feel my aim was definitely challenged right from the start. I expected to do way better than I did, but as Thanos says, and that's why I got unranked, which is 3 points to my name. I wasn't gonna let that stop me. Strangely, even though these benchmarks are only tracking, I felt as if my flicks got cleaner and even faster. My tracking was on point, but I did have some precision issues. My aim would track someone really well, but I lost focus of the targets in-game at certain points. But I wasn't gonna let that discourage me. I knew I could do better, and I was determined to make that happen. So I'm leaving day 1 unranked, defeated, and crying in my bed. Thanks, Miyu. For day 2, however, we'll be sure to change up some interesting points that might fix these issues I'm having. Now, day 2 was actually all about experimentation. I switched things up and I tried out my aimbots routine, but it ended up affecting my flicks in a way I didn't expect. But that's okay, because you have to experiment to find out what works best for you. I also added some precision scenarios to the mix, and they had a really positive effect on my tracking. I was no longer losing track of the targets or under flicking as I was before, but I knew I could do even better than this, and I was getting excited for the future. In game, my aim felt really crisp and quite snappy again. The only part bugging me was those flicks were lacking a little bit. But for day 3, I'd actually be switching to target switching and dynamic in hopes of getting both mouse control and those flicks in. So that's what I did. Day 3 was all about taking things to the next level. I decided to try some target switching and dynamic in hopes of improving those mouse control and flicks. And let me tell you, the results were mind-blowing. Playing normal scenarios just wasn't rewarding anymore. These benchmarks made me push my aim to new heights, and I could feel the improvement translating into game. It wasn't all in my head, and the results actually spoke for themselves. I could really feel as if my fundamentals had improved. I started being more confident in other tracking scenarios, and it wasn't that my scores suddenly shot up, but my consistency certainly did. By day 4, I was starting to notice a trend in my aim improvement. These precision issues I had on day 1 were all but gone, and I concluded that the dodge scenario that's in Miyu benchmarks were actually negatively impacting my aim, so I decided to scrap it altogether. On the flip side, my flicks were becoming way more consistent with each session, and my benchmark scores were steadily improving too. But just to keep things interesting, I decided to add more variability to my routine. I started randomly selecting aim scenarios to do each day, forcing me to adapt to different styles of aiming that That would include anything from fast drapes to static routines, and I really felt as this way of diversifying your aim is the way to go moving forward. But was this increased score all in my head, or was it actually translating in-game? As I entered day 5, I was feeling more confident than I ever did. The Mew benchmarks were slowly but surely improving my aim, and I could really feel it in game too. My flicks were becoming more accurate, my tracking was smoother, and my reaction time was just getting faster. This is really starting to sound like a sponsored video, so I'll take a step back, but as I continued to train, I noticed I was struggling with some stubborn scenarios that wouldn't go up in score. So I decided to take a step back and focus on the fundamentals again, breaking down my aim technique and analyzing where I could improve. Instead of spamming the scenario, which has a low score, I worked on the surrounding skills and did VOD reviews to where my flaws are during these scenarios. For example, in the scenario of far thin strafes, I noticed my aim would be slightly shaky. So I decided to add smooth your own wrists before playing this scenario. Now, this didn't magically improve my score by much, but VOD reviewing it again, I noticed my aim was a lot smoother this time around. This is a clear example of how VOD reviewing and benchmarks should be used. Not as spam material, but to fine-tune and work on the surrounding skills. On day 6, I realized that the Mew benchmarks had become an essential part of my daily training routine. I've been aim training for so long now that I was struggling to play scenarios that weren't benchmark related, and I could see how people get addicted to this and use it as a form of motivation to keep aim training, but also knew that I couldn't rely solely on the benchmarks to improve my aim. So as day 7 approached the end of my 1-week experiment, I couldn't deny the impact that Mew benchmarks had on my aim. My accuracy, precision, and the speed had all improved significantly, and I was now able to hit clips way more consistently than I could before. But more than that, I had gained a newfound confidence in my aim abilities. If you're looking to improve your aim, I highly recommend giving the benchmarks a try. Just be prepared to put in the work and don't be afraid to experiment and try things along the way. So if you really want to take your aim to the next level, challenge yourself with the Mew benchmarks. It won't be easy, but the results will be worth it. And who knows, you might surprise yourself and actually become a monster in under a week.